The Jim Jones trial took a wild turn. What you're about to learn might just flip your perspective. In an unexpected twist, Cameron revealed a courtroom shocker that could send Chrissy Lynn's career into a nosedive. While all eyes were on Jim Jones, no one saw this coming. A revelation so explosive, it's Chrissy's secret, not Jim's, that's poised to make headlines worldwide. Now, the secret Chrissy fought so hard to bury is on the verge of being exposed. And not just to a few, but to the entire world. But here's the real kicker. The very truth she hid might end up in Jim Jones's arsenal. That's right. What once threatened to destroy him could now be his greatest weapon. This case? It's no longer just about Jim. It's about Chrissy's vendetta. And the plot? It's spilling far beyond the courtroom walls. It's spilling into the streets now. If you think this is just another courtroom drama, think again. The stakes this time? Far beyond what you could ever envision. As the courtroom doors swing open, time seems to freeze. The world holds its breath, eyes glued to the trial that could alter the course of history. Jim Jones stands at the center, facing charges powerful enough to unravel everything he's built. Amid the whirlwind of chaos, Cameron dropped a bombshell that no one saw coming. And believe me, it shook the room. Cameron, as always, never afraid to speak his mind, never one to shy away from controversy. But what he exposed about Chrissy Lynn, that was a game changer. Suddenly, the trial was no longer just about Jim Jones and his charges. The courtroom, originally set to focus on his criminal accusations, transformed into the backdrop of a far bigger scandal. The drama had just begun. Cameron was the one who shifted the spotlight onto Chrissy, unveiling secrets that no one knew existed. A story that had been buried, until now. Let me paint the picture for you. The trial, everyone's gaze locked on Jim. The man everyone knew had a storm of legal issues surrounding his empire. His reputation tarnished, his name dragged through the mud, with whispers of his ties to a web of shady dealings. There were already doubts swirling about Jim's loyalty to his crew, his questionable financial moves, and of course, the infamous image of Deepet that Cameron and the others had carefully crafted. But then in the courtroom, something entirely unforeseen occurred. Instead of sticking to the charges against Jim Jones, the entire focus shifted in an instant when Cameron, in a stunning turn of events, chose to reveal Chrissy Lynn's hidden secret. This turned out to be far bigger than any of us ever imagined. I can already guess what's running through your mind. What could be more explosive than the feud between Jim and Cameron? Well, that's where things get truly wild. Chrissy Lynn, known to many as Jim Jones's longtime girlfriend and reality TV star, had been keeping a secret for years. A secret so earth-shattering, so deeply hidden, that Cameron revealed it all in a single jaw-dropping moment in that courtroom. So, what exactly did Cameron uncover? He set off a series of events that would leave everyone stunned. Chrissy's hidden past, her darkest secrets, came to light in that moment when Cameron accused her of being tied to some questionable business of her own. You could almost hear the gasps from the crowd and the tension in the courtroom. It was thick enough to cut with a knife. The accusation hit like a sledgehammer. Chrissy, the woman who had been by Jim's side through thick and thin, had been playing both sides all along. But Cameron didn't stop at merely suggesting she had ties to shady financial dealings. No, he went further, dropping a bombshell. Chrissy had been secretly collaborating with some extremely powerful figures. These weren't just any people. These were individuals Jim had no clue about. Powerful figures who had the ability to destroy everything, not just for Jim, but for everyone caught in the web. But why now? Why did Cameron choose this moment, right in the midst of Jim Jones's trial, to expose it all? What drove this public revelation? Was Cameron simply trying to highlight the chaos within the crew, or was there something more strategic going on? Let's take a step back. For years, Jim Jones, Cameron, and the entire Dipset crew have been at the pinnacle of the music world, shaping trends and creating unforgettable moments. Their camaraderie, their loyalty, it was the kind of bond that everyone looked up to. But beneath the surface, there were cracks. And those cracks? They were beginning to surface. Cameron, who had long shared a tense and complex relationship with Jim, had kept quiet for years. He'd stayed away from commenting on the inner turmoil within Dipset. But now, with Jim's trial unfolding, Cameron saw his opportunity, a moment to expose Chrissy's involvement in something far more sinister, something that could be the catalyst for Jim's eventual fall. It wasn't just about Chrissy's personal life. The secret Cameron revealed reached far deeper, into criminal networks, shadowy figures who had been manipulating things from the sidelines. This bombshell? It had the power to destroy everything. Jim Jones's reputation in the music industry, the unwavering loyalty he once commanded from his fans, suddenly it was all on the line. You have to ask yourself, how did Chrissy feel about all this? Was she blindsided? Was she complicit in the plan from the start? Or is there something deeper at play, something no one's ready to acknowledge? But before we jump to conclusions, let's pause and consider the real weight of the bombshell. Cameron dropped. Because at this point, it's no longer just about a trial, folks. This is a story of betrayal, hidden truths, and loyalties being put to the ultimate test, all in the harsh light of the public eye. We have to ask, what was Chrissy's role in all of this? How far did this web of conspiracy stretch? Who else was tangled in these murky dealings? Could it be that Jim Jones was merely a pawn in a much larger scheme, one he never even saw coming? And just when you think it couldn't get more twisted, here's where it takes an even darker turn. What does this mean for Jim and Chrissy's relationship? Is this trial going to lead to an irreversible breakup? Not just in their personal lives, but in their entire public persona. If Jim has been dragged into a scandal, is Chrissy the one who pulled him in, or is she merely a victim of circumstances? All these questions are swirling around, and we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Buckle up, because we're about to plunge even deeper into the aftermath of Cameron's bombshell in the courtroom. And believe me, things are about to get even more explosive. As the courtroom erupted in chaos following Cameron's shocking revelation, the world looked on in stunned silence. Chrissy Lampkin, once Jim Jones's unwavering rock, now found herself at the eye of a storm she never saw coming. It wasn't just the shock of Cameron's words that shook everyone. It was the dark web of connections, the secretive ties, and the hidden motives that were now being dragged into the light. Let's take a closer look, because this is where things start to spiral. Chrissy, once seen as the loyal partner, the woman who stood by Jim through thick and thin, was now staring down serious allegations. Cameron wasn't just making empty accusations. He was revealing real, dangerous connections. People with the power to ruin lives with just one phone call. And yet, here was Chrissy, allegedly tied to them. The accusation was straightforward. Chrissy had been secretly involved with figures from Jim Jones's past. These weren't just casual contacts. These were people with their own hidden agendas, experts in manipulating situations for their own gain. They moved in the shadows, pulling the strings in a world of crime, corruption, and deceit. And somehow, Chrissy had become entangled with them. What made this even more shocking was the fact that Jim had no idea. According to Cameron, Jim had been completely kept in the dark about Chrissy's dealings, her connections to these shady figures, and the secrets she'd been hiding from him. Cameron painted the picture of a man blinded by love and loyalty. But now, the truth was finally coming to light. Chrissy's secret life had been exposed to everyone, except Jim. But wait, let's pause for a moment. Why would Chrissy, a woman who had stood by Jim's side for so many years, suddenly align herself with people capable of bringing him down? The questions kept piling up, each more perplexing than the last. Was this just a plan gone awry? Or was there a darker, more deliberate motive behind it all? Now let's take a look at how the public responded to the chaos. Because here's the thing, when something like this goes down, the fans, the media, and even those closest to the celebrities start digging for answers. The fan base that had once adored Jim and Chrissy, the ones who saw them as the ultimate power couple, the followers who tracked their every move on reality TV, were now left questioning everything. Suddenly, everything was in question. Can you imagine the backlash from the fans when they learned about Chrissy's alleged involvement in all of this? They were furious. They felt completely betrayed. And who could blame them? Jim had always been their guy, the loyal rapper who kept it real. But now he was caught in a mess far bigger than anything he ever anticipated. Sources close to the situation revealed that many fans were accusing Chrissy of manipulating Jim for her own benefit. Some even claimed she had been using Jim's name and fame to advance her own career, all while secretly working against him behind the scenes. The shock and disappointment among fans who had once idolized the couple was palpable. Fans were left questioning, is this what loyalty really looks like? And let's not overlook the media. The headlines exploded, twisting the story in every direction imaginable. Some outlets wasted no time branding Chrissy a gold digger, while others painted her as a puppet master, allegedly pulling Jim's strings to push her own agenda. But here's the twist. No one knew what to believe anymore. The story was shifting. By the minute, and with each new revelation, things seemed to spiral further out of control. But this is where the plot thickens, because Cameron didn't just stop at accusing Chrissy. Oh no, he dug much deeper. He began unveiling some incredibly uncomfortable truths about Jim Jones and his past. Things were taking a turn that couldn't be overlooked any longer. Cameron didn't just claim that Jim was oblivious to Chrissy's actions, he argued Jim had been blind to his own growing issues. According to Cameron, Jim had been making questionable choices for years, getting involved in shady deals and surrounding himself with people who were playing him like a pawn. These were individuals with their own hidden motives, people who didn't care about Jim at all. They only cared about using him to push their own agendas. In a bold move, Cameron dropped names. Big names. Names that you wouldn't expect to hear in the same sentence as Jim Jones. These were the kinds of names that didn't just represent bad business, but criminal enterprises that operated in the shadows, away from the public eye, and Jim's connection to these figures. It wasn't just professional, it was personal. According to Cameron, Jim had been surrounded by people who had been feeding him lies and leading him down a path that was bound to cause trouble. Trouble that, as it turned out, was right at his doorstep. And you know what's even more shocking? Cameron didn't just talk about these connections in vague terms. No, he went into specific details about how deep Jim's involvement really went. He made it clear that Jim had been wrapped up in these activities for years, but he never saw it. Whether it was ignorance, denial, or a complete disregard for the consequences, Jim was now facing the fallout of his own choices. Choices that were linked to the very people Chrissy had been secretly working with. Let that sink in for a moment. It's one thing to be dragged into something without knowing what's going on, but it's a whole different level when you realize that the people you trusted most, the ones closest to you, were the ones guiding you into this chaos. And that's exactly what Cameron was hinting at. He wasn't just saying Chrissy's betrayal was personal. He was suggesting it was part of something much bigger, something business-related. And Jim, he was the one who'd been blinded by love, unknowingly trapped in a game he didn't even realize he was playing. But here's the twist. The stakes were far higher than anyone could have anticipated. As the drama in the courtroom unfolded, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't just about one person's error. This was about the downfall of an entire empire. It wasn't just Jim's career hanging in the balance. It was everything they had built, everything they had worked so hard for, now on the verge of collapse. As the courtroom drama played out, it became evident that what was at stake went much deeper than a personal scandal. This wasn't just about Jim Jones's reputation being ruined, or Chrissy Lampkin being exposed for her hidden dealings. It was about the entire foundation they had created crumbling. It was about the very empire they had built being ripped apart. The fan base was in turmoil, the industry was watching closely, and the legal consequences were just beginning to unfold. And here's the harsh truth no one wanted to face. This scandal wasn't just a personal disaster. It was a ticking time bomb for their careers. For anyone who thought this would blow over, they were sorely mistaken. The moment Cameron spilled the truth, the world wasn't just witnessing a couple's dirty laundry being aired. It was watching the fall of an entire brand. Jim Jones wasn't just a rapper. He was a cultural icon, a trailblazer in the hip-hop world. And now, he found himself entangled in a legal nightmare that threatened to upend everything. Legal action was unavoidable. The second Cameron's words hit the press, lawyers sprang into action. These weren't just scandalous rumors. They were allegations with real legal consequences. Jim's past associations, the shady figures he'd allegedly dealt with, the money trails, and the looming threat of criminal liability were all beginning to surface. And let's not forget the government investigations that quickly began to swirl around the case. Law enforcement had already zeroed in on Jim's past connections, especially after Cameron's bombshell revelations. Sources close to the investigation suggested that federal agents were digging into possible money laundering, racketeering, and potentially even more serious criminal activities. So what did all this mean for Jim and Chrissy? The most immediate consequence was the looming threat of legal battles. Both of them were now staring down serious legal repercussions. We're talking years behind bars if things took a turn for the worse. Whether or not Jim was directly involved in any illegal activities, his ties to the wrong people and his failure to address the red flags could be enough to take him down. But there was an even bigger factor at play: public backlash. The industry had already started to turn its back on them. Longtime collaborators were pulling away. Record labels were putting up walls. And the streets? They were alive with rumors. No one wanted to be associated with a sinking ship. And the fallout from this trial? It had only just begun. Let's dive into the fallout from this scandal. We're talking about brands, companies, and networks that had been aligned with Jim and Chrissy for years, now forced to confront the uncomfortable question: do we keep backing these people when their reputations are hanging by a thread? For someone like Jim Jones, once untouchable in the hip-hop world, the weight of reality was hitting hard. The calls from sponsors and partners started pouring in. Many began distancing themselves, uncertain about how this scandal would play out in the public eye. The domino effect was about to hit on a massive scale. In fact, whispers were circulating that Jim was on the verge of losing several major deals, including endorsements and collaborations with some of the biggest names in the industry. The pressure was intensifying, and it was clear everyone around Jim could feel it. As for Chrissy, her situation wasn't any better. The media had already painted her as the ultimate villain. All those years of loyalty and support for Jim were now being overshadowed by her alleged hidden life. And it wasn't just the fans. Turning their backs on her, industry insiders were beginning to question her true loyalty and motives. The public wasn't buying the love story anymore. Fans began accusing her of manipulating Jim for her own benefit, using their relationship as a stepping stone to further her career. It was a brutal twist of fate. The same people who once admired her for her strength now saw her as a cold, calculating figure who had been playing a long game all along. And let's not even dive into Cameron. The moment he spoke up, the drama reached a whole new level. The hip-hop community, the media, and fans alike were hanging on his every word. Cameron, with his sharp wit and unapologetic attitude, wasn't backing down. He wasn't just exposing Chrissy, he was shaking the very foundation of everything. He was dismantling everything Jim had worked so hard to build. The real question now was Cameron doing this out of revenge, or was he trying to protect Jim from a truth he had been too blind to see? Let's take a moment to consider the potential legal fallout. If Chrissy had indeed been involved with the wrong people, she could be facing charges of conspiracy, fraud, and even racketeering. These weren't just minor charges. These were serious felonies that could land Chrissy behind bars for years. For Jim, the situation was even more complicated. He could face indirect charges due to his ties to known criminals. We're talking about being caught in a web of illegal activities, some of which he might not have even been aware of. But the law doesn't always care about ignorance. That was a harsh truth Jim had to face. And what about the public relations disaster? It was clear that Jim was no longer the untouchable icon he once was. His once loyal fans were now questioning everything. The rapper who had once been a hero to so many was now grappling with the fallout of betrayal, manipulation, and hidden secrets. But here's the ultimate question. Can they recover from this? Is there any chance for Jim and Chrissy to rebuild their careers, their relationship, and their lives after all the secrets that have been laid bare? Or is this the final chapter of an era? One thing is certain. This trial, this scandal, and the shocking revelations that followed will be etched in history. Jim Jones's name will forever be tied to one of the most jaw-dropping sagas in hip-hop history. But here we are. The story isn't over. The courtroom drama persists, the legal battles are far from finished, and the fans are left trying to make sense of it all. Will Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin ever bounce back from this? Only time will reveal the answer. But for now, we're left with the aftermath. The truth is out in the open, and there's no turning back. And there you have it, the shocking truth behind Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin's crumbling empire. But here's the big question. What's next for them? Can they weather this storm, or is this the end of their careers as we know them? Will the legal fallout hit harder than the scandal itself? And most importantly, how far will this ripple effect go? This story is still unfolding, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. So, drop a comment below. What do you think happens next? Do you think this was a calculated move by Cameron to take down Jim's career? Or is there something deeper going on? We want to hear your thoughts on this explosive scandal. Don't forget to like this video if you're stunned by these revelations and share it with your friends so they can hear the truth too. Make sure to subscribe so you stay updated on all the latest breaking news as we continue to dig into more explosive stories like this one. Turn on notifications so you never miss a shocking moment. This is only the beginning. We've got a lot more to uncover. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, keep your eyes open. In the wild world of celebrity drama, the truth is always stranger than fiction.